IAF's Rajhans touches down at Ayodhya Airport for trial. A week before the inauguration of newly developed Maryada Purushottam Sri Ram Ayodhya Airport, Indian Air Force Rajhans, a Boeing 737, landed on Friday at the airport as a part of trial before Prime Minister Narendra Modi's arrival here on December 30. The VIP carrier an over 16-year-old aircraft was delivered to IAF in April 2008. On December 14, DGCA gave license for commercial operations at Ayodhya Airport, which can handle up to 8 Airbus 320 or Boeing 737 MAX series, single 200-seater aircraft. The airport is also fit for day and night as well as for weather operations with a total 500 passenger handling capacity at a time. The airport has a 2200 meter long and 45 meter wide runway with a terminal spread over 8000 square meter area. For international operations in the second phase, the runway will be extended up to 3000 meter with a second terminal constructed on a 30,000 square meter area. The airport is spread across a total of 821 acres of land. The government on Friday extended the lower import duty for palm, soybean and sunflower oil till March 31, 2025, which will ensure their availability to keep a check on the retail prices. It has also extended the import duty exemption given to masoor dal by one more year till March 31, 2025. The lower import duty structure on crude palm oil, crude sunflower oil and crude soybean oil was originally set to expire in March 24. Earlier, the government on June 15 had reduced the import duty on refined soybean and sunflower oil to 12% to 17%. Mussoorie expects full house for Christmas, high occupancy until New Year. The Queen of Hills is gearing up for a significant influx of tourists from Christmas through the New Year. Sanjay Agarwal, president of the Mussoorie Hotels Association, said for the extended Christmas weekend, star hotels have already booked up to 90% of their rooms, and other hotels also report approximately 50% room occupancy. The Mussoorie Winterline Carnival, scheduled from December 27 to 30, is also expected to draw a large number of tourists during this period. Dehradun District Magistrate Sonika told that preparations are underway for the Winterline Carnival. This carnival is expected to attract a large number of tourists from various parts of country, Sonika said. Hoteliers mentioned receiving numerous inquiries and bookings for the week after Christmas and up to New Year. Christmas gift. Gujarat government eases rules in global fintech hub in state capital. The Gujarat government on Friday allowed consumption of alcohol in Gift City in the state capital. The relaxation will usher in an evening social life through wine and dine facilities in the entire Gift City area, thereby providing a global business ecosystem for global investors, technical experts and national and international companies operating here. According to the new rules, all authorities, employers and employees in the Gift City will be given liquor access permits. Additionally, authorized visitors to Gift City will also be issued temporary permits which can they use to consume alcohol in restaurants, clubs and hotels in the presence of permanent employees of companies operating in Gift City. AI assisted piano allows disabled musicians to perform Beethoven. Inside the wood-paneled auditorium of one of the Tokyo's most prestigious concert halls, 24-year-old Kiva Ushami presses just one index finger to the piano and summons the colossal swells of Beethoven's Ode to Joy, accompanied by an orchestra and choir. Usami, who has cerebral palsy, was one of the three musicians with disabilities performing Symphony Number 9 with the Yokohama Symphony Hall on Thursday using an artificial intelligence powered piano. India rushed one of its warships in the Arabian Sea on Saturday soon after a merchant vessel carrying crude on its way to Mangalore port from Saudi Arabia caught fire in a drone attack about 200 miles off Gujarat coast. The Navy's surveillance aircraft has reached the distressed vessel MV Pluto, which has 20 Indians and a Vietnamese on board. The vessel is a Libera flagged tanker and affiliated to Israel, as per initial reports. Navy sources said all Indians on board are safe and the fire has been extinguished. At last reports, the crude carrier was making its way towards Mumbai with escort assistance due to steering issues. So far, no one has claimed responsibility for the suspected attack, though some foreign news agencies have speculated the role of Iran-backed Houthi militants. Karnataka CM pulls back on his hijab issue. In a U-turn, Karnataka CM Siddaramaiah said lifting of the ban on hijab in educational institutions was being considered and no decision has been taken. BJP accused the government of doing appeasement politics. Priyanka of Congress UP post pilot Chandigarh in charge. Priyanka Gandhi Vadra has been moved out of the responsibility of UP and will be a general secretary without portfolio, while former Rajasthan Deputy CM Sachin Pilot will oversee party affairs in Chhattisgarh. As part of the AICC reshuffle announced Saturday, senior leader Ramesh Chinithala is new party manager for Maharashtra, while SS Randhawa will continue with Rajasthan. The J&K administration Saturday announced compensation and jobs for families of 3 villagers found dead near the site on Thursday's terrorist ambush that killed 4 soldiers in Punch, amid calls for an impartial investigation following allegations that the civilian trio died in army custody. Lieutenant Governor V.K. Saxena has recommended a CBI inquiry into procurement and supply of non-standard drugs, including some life-saving medicines at state-run hospitals. Officials said these drugs were purchased by the Central Procurement Agency under the Health and Family Welfare Department of the Delhi government and supplied to various government hospitals. In a communication to the Chief Secretary, the LG noted that the probe may involve many interstate stakeholders. The air quality of the national capital deteriorated further on Saturday, with air quality index touching the severe plus category at 450 as against 409 a day earlier. Delhi recorded the highest AQI in the country on Saturday, according to Central Pollution Control Board's 24-hour average bulletin released at 4 pm. The Commission for Air Quality Management, which on Friday evening had imposed measures under Stage 3 of Graded Response Action Plan, said on Saturday that it would wait and watch before invoking stringent actions under the Stage 4. Several parts of the city saw moderate fog, with visibility dropping to 200 meters at Safdarjung and 500 meters at Palam. There are chances of moderate to dense fog on Sunday morning. Experts said since local and regional sources of pollution remained high, unfavorable meteorological conditions including fog, calm wind conditions, low temperature and low mixing layer height impacted the dispersion of pollutants. Met officials said wind up to 10 km per hour blew during the daytime, but speed reduced to nil around 4 pm. Delhi's AQI was 443 at 9 am and it entered the severe plus category at 11 am with a reading of 452 on the index. However, overall index Delhi's AQI at 4 pm was recorded at 450, while the air quality in neighboring areas including Noida, Ghaziabad, Gurgaon and Faridabad remained in the very poor category. The 17-kilometer regional rapid transport system stretched between Shahibabad and Duhai has been operational since October, while work is progressing on the Delhi section of Delhi Ghaziabad Meerut. Pier construction is almost complete in the Delhi section with 7 km the elevated corridor now ready for use. The corridor spans 82 km with a 14 km segment in Delhi. Of this, around 9 km are elevated and 5 km underground, while around 7 km of the elevated section in Delhi has been accomplished. Pier construction is nearing completion on around 12 km of the 14 km section comprising the four sections of Jangpura, Sarai Kale Khan, New Ashoknagar and Anand Vihar. The track laying in this section is progressing at pace. So far, tracks have been laid on a 2 km viaduct between New Ashoknagar and Anand Vihar underground station. Apart from that, OHE masts for electric traction have been installed for about 2 km. With several unaided private schools having approached the education department seeking permission to increase fees, the Delhi government had decided to set up two project management units to evaluate the applications and take a decision on a basis of financial health and the of institutions. A senior Delhi government official said the PMUs would closely analyze the accounts of all unaided private schools and recommend if there was a need to allow them to raise the tuition fee and other charges or even reduce them. It's a routine process. All financial documents of the schools are scrutinized by a panel of chartered accountants and the decision to revise the fee structure is taken accordingly, the officials said. According to officials, there are close to 1800 private unaided recognized schools in the capital, of which over 460 have been allotted land by the government agencies. These schools have a mandatorily seek approval for the director before revising the fee structure. The Directorate of Education has received the proposal to hike the fee structure from 262 such schools so far as the financial year 23-24, another official said. Hindu temple defaced with pro-Khalistan graffiti in US. Days after a US religious watchdog censored Modi government for not adequately protecting minorities in India, 6 separatists in California allegedly defaced a Hindu temple on Friday, bringing to a boil growing tension between New Delhi and Washington over the issue. Photos posted online by the Hindu American Foundation showed the temple walls defaced with slogans praising militant separatist icon Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale and abusing PM Modi. The mention of the Khalistan terrorist kingpin Bhindranwale was targeted Hindus for murder, especially meant to traumatize temple gears and create a fear of violence. Meeting the California definition of a hate crime, the HAF said, calling for investigation the incident as a hate crime. HAF said the incident was a reminder that California is rapidly joining Canada as a hotbed of Khalistan-inspired anti-Hindu hate crime and pledged to raise the issue with the US Justice Department. It urged US to take a stronger line against Khalistan movement, describing it as Pakistan-supported militancy. Attacks on Hindu temples and Indian diplomatic missions, including threats targeting Indian diplomats, are growing in US and Canada amid sharp public differences between New Delhi and the West, following the alleged official Indian hand in the assassination of Sikh militant Hardeep Singh Nijjar, designated by India as a terrorist, and purported plot to kill separatist activist Gurpatwant Singh Pannu. Washington and Ottawa have suggested the activists have the right to protest under the country's free speech statutes, but New Delhi says the activism has gone beyond free speech into the ambit of threats and violence aimed At the broader Indian community, officials and diplomats, separatist Sikh militants have also long intimidating and silencing moderate Sikhs, Indian officials say. In a lengthy social media thread, Navdeep Singh, an anti-Khalistan activist, posted videos, photos and messages detailing what he said was a nexus between the separatist organization Sikhs for Justice, headed by Pannu, and militants based in Pakistan with close ties to the Pakistan military. Amid reports that a Hindu temple was vandalized in California, Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar on Saturday said the issue had been taken up with the local authorities and it was important to deny space to extremist and separatist forces. According to an agency report, police officers in New York, California confirmed that they had received a report of graffiti at the Sri Swaminarayan Mandir Hindu temple on Friday morning. Images posted on social media showed the word Khalistan spray painted on the signpost outside the temple along with several other objectionable graffiti. I have seen the news. As you know, we are concerned about this. Extremist and separatist forces outside India should not get space. Our consulate has lodged a complaint with the United States government and the police there over whatever happened, and I believe the matter is being inquired. The foreign minister said, speaking to news reporters on the margins of the third convocation of the Rashtriya Raksha University in Gujarat's Gandhinagar. The New York police said any acts or threats of violence, property damage, harassment, intimidation, or other crimes motivated by hate or bias are considered very serious and given very high priority. The Consulate General of India in San Francisco strongly condemned the defacing of Sri Swaminarayan Hindu Temple. Talking about the arrest of Nikhil Gupta, who has been indicted by the United States for plotting to kill a Khalistan leader, the Union Minister said India has provided consular access to him thrice. Whenever an Indian citizen is arrested, we seek consular access for their care, which have been received thrice, Jaishankar added. Asked about the absence of the US and Canada from the list of partner countries for the 10th Vibrant Gujarat Global Summit, Jaishankar said he would not put any political meaning to this. At the government level, it depends who we invite. The government of Gujarat can answer. I would not put any political meaning, the minister said. My understanding is opposite, which is that in fact many countries are calling us to participate in Vibrant Gujarat. We ask them to talk the government of Gujarat. We would like to support it because we would like to see maximum participants, he added. Meghalaya Catholic priest can bless same couples, right? The Enforcement Directorate has arrested Chinese phone manufacturer Vivo India's interim CEO in India among three high-profile persons taken into custody on Saturday in its ongoing money laundering case, where the agency has alleged the company has laundered over 62,000 crore in illegal remittance. Sources said two other persons arrested in the case are Harinder Dahiya, CFO of Vivo India, and this consultant with the company. Investigation is in progress as the agency will further question the accused in custody. They were produced before a court who sent them to ED custody for 3 days. In October, ED had arrested 4 persons, including a Chinese national. A leading Indian phone manufacturer, the Vivo chartered accountant Nitin Garg. The 4 accused are in judicial custody. ED has also filed a charge sheet in the case for the first week of this month. Just a day after announcing the Congress government's decision to revoke the ban on wearing hijab in educational institutions in Karnataka, enforced by the previous BJP-led dispensation, CM Siddaramaiah did a volte-face on Saturday. He claimed he had only intended to say that the demand for lifting the ban was still under consideration. The CM had stated on Friday, after inaugurating a police station in Nanjangud, that his government had decided to withdraw the hijab ban. instructing officials to initiate the process. No more will there be a ban on hijab. You can wear a hijab and go to schools. Wearing and eating what you want and like is your choice, he had declared. However, facing backlash from the principal opposition BJP and VHP, Siddharamaiah revised his stand on Saturday. When I was addressing a gathering in Mysuru, one person asked me about the ban. Replying to him, I said the government will look into it. Asked about lifting the ban during the current academic year, the CM said it would be done after discussions of the government level and refused further questions on the issue. Reacting sharply to the CM's statement from the previous day, BJP alleged the government's move raised concerns about the secular nature of educational spaces. UDP MLA Yashpal Suvarna warned the potential demands for allowing saffron shawls if hijab is permitted, while former BJP Minister KS Iswarappa liked Siddharamaiah to Mohammed bin Tughlaq, linked Siddharamaiah to Mohammed bin Tughlaq and predicted violence if hijab is allowed in schools and colleges. Home Minister Amit Shah, in his valedictory speech at BJP's two-day National Office Bearers meeting at the party headquarters on Saturday, suggested party functionaries focus on booth management and ensure victory with a bigger margin, aiming to boost vote share by more than 10% in the 24 Lok Sabha polls as compared to 2019 general elections. All state presidents, general secretaries, and national office bearers brainstormed for 2 days at the extension building of the party's headquarters and are said to have exchanged views on the poll strategy, including the selection of candidates for the 24 Lok Sabha polls. After the meeting, Shah, in a post on X, said the massive victory that BJP has won in 3 states under the chairmatic leadership of PM Narendra Modi shows that the faith of the people of every section and every region is only the Modi. We have to go to every house in the country with our ideology and the historical work of the BJP governments and make Modi ji the PM again in 24 with an unprecedented majority, the Home Minister said. According to party sources, Shah added that there is positivity in the country as people are happy with the way the government has delivered its promises in the past 10 years. Party should capitalize the popularity of Narendra Modi, who has been the most popular PM of the country. Sources quoted Shah as saying as the suggested that state leaders should continue their focus on booth management, for which deployment of the party cadres should be done without delay. Sources said Shah also shared his own experiences with booth management and the effectiveness of the Panna Pramukh, a coordinator for each phase of the electoral rolls system. His ambitious suggestion of 10% more in vote share is the continuation of the mantra of 50% vote share that he had given to the party cadres during the recent assembly polls. The Saffron Party had a vote share of 37% in 19. Shah suggested that the party leaders should reach out of the voters with the welfare and development projects delivered during the 2 tenures of the Modi government and how the period had witnessed the fulfillment of the party's poll promises. It was also learned that the consecration of the Ram Mandir, which is scheduled for January 22 next year, figured prominently in the discussions. A source said that the party is likely to release a booklet on the endeavors towards fulfilling the poll promise of the construction of the temple in Ayodhya after long fought legal battle. Priyanka Gandhi Vadra has been moved out of the responsibility of Uttar Pradesh and would be a Congress General Secretary without portfolio, while Sachin Pilot has shifted from Rajasthan to oversee the party affairs in Chhattisgarh as part of the AICC reshuffle announced on Saturday. Crucially, senior Congress leader Ramesh Chinanthala is the new party manager for Maharashtra, while Sukhjinder Singh Randhawa would continue with Rajasthan. Mohan Prakash, a former Janata leader, has been given Bihar, where Congress has to coordinate with JDU. CPM General Secretary Sitayam Yechuri has declined to attend the consecration ceremony of the Ram Temple in Ayodhya on January 22 next year. CPI Chief D. Raja, who was also among the invitees, is unlikely to attend the ceremony as well. Among top opposition leaders, the Sri Ram Janmabhoomi Tirath Kshetra Trust has invited Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge, former Congress President Sonia Gandhi and the party's leader in Lok Sabha Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and H.D. Devgowda, and heads of political party included Aam Aadmi Party's Arvind Kejriwal and BSP leader Mayawati are also understood to have been invited to attend. Though elaborate arrangements have been made to receive the VVIP guest, General Secretary of the Trust Champat Rai has been advising pilgrims to not visit Ayodhya on January 22 to avoid overcrowding and ask them to pray at the nearest temple instead. BJP is gearing up to enter 24 Lok Sabha fray with a claim of having fulfilled yet another of its long-standing promises, implementation of Uniform Civil Code. Along with the already fulfilled promises of construction of Ram Temple in Ayodhya and nullifying Article 370, UCC has been integral of the party's poll manifestos of 4 decades. Sources said the Uttarakhand government is set to implement UCC in January and its draft will be the party's template for the rest of the country. A senior party functionary said the subject was in concurrent list of the constitution and hence the centre would not impose the law across the country but leave it to the state to draft their own. However, our party is committed and in implementing UCC in 10 states where it has governments of its own, the functionary said. After reviewing how it plays out in Uttarakhand, BJP aims to implement UCC in UP, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Haryana, Maharashtra, Assam, Tripura and Manipur. We will go to the people and convince them that the law should be uniform for all citizens and religion should be a criterion. The functionary said, housing confidence that those opposed to UCC would find themselves in a quandary once people respond positively to a new law. The party functionary said public response to the law would be crucial to carry it forward and would also help understand the changes of improvisations required. We have to be sensitive about local traditions, but there will be uniformity in marriages, he added. We have formed a committee on UCC and its report is expected next month. Once we get the report, UCC will be implemented in the state without delay. Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami had told reporters recently an Uttarakhand government appointed committee headed by retired Supreme Court Judge Ranjana Prakash Desai has sought suggestions from 2 lakh people of UCC during the last 1.5 years while meeting 20,000 people from different walks of life. The Indian Army acknowledged the reports of the 3 civilian fatalities near the site of Thursday's terrorist ambush in Poonch and highlighted that the matter is currently under investigation. Indian Army stay committed to extending full support and cooperation in the conduct of investigations, it said. The deceased men, 43-year-old, 27-year-old and 32-year-old, were reportedly among those detained by the army for questioning in connection with the ambush at Poonch between Dera Ki Gali and Bufliaz. Hailing from Topa Pir village of Bufliaz Sarai Surankot, the cause of their deaths remains unknown according to Jammu and Kashmir authorities. The mysterious death of 3 persons and widespread resentment among peoples after the circulation of videos related to the incident. Legal action in this matter has been initiated by the appropriate authority, said a source in the J&K administration, which announced compensation and compassionate appointments of the families of the deceased. Several political figures, including Mirwais Umar Farooq of the Hurriyat Conference, demanded thorough investigation in the circumstances surrounding the civilians' death. Regional parties, National Conference and People's Democratic Party called for an end of the bloodshed while seeking investigations into both the military and civilian fatalities. Following the Punch attack, the army detained 15 people for questioning from Topapir. Unfortunately, the bodies of 3 men with evident injury marks were discovered near the encounter site. The remaining 12 men are currently hospitalized and in critical condition, alleged PDP President Mehbooba Mufti in Srinagar. According to the villagers, the 3 men were among those detained for questioning. Muhammad Sadiq, the Sarpanch of the Topapir and the uncle of deceased, said his nephew, who got married just last year, lives behind a grieving family. With this, had 3 sons and 1 girl, with the eldest son deceased. The army said on Saturday that the infiltration bid from Pakistan was foiled along the border in the Akhnur area of Jammu, and that terrorists seen dragging one body bag. The abortive attempt was mounted at a time massive search operations were on the flush out the terrorists out of the ambush and killing 4 soldiers 2 days ago in Punch, around 200 km away. According to the army's White Night Corps, 4 terrorists were caught in surveillance equipment trying to sneak in late Friday night in Akhnur, J&K. Infiltration bid foiled in IB sector of Khor, Akhnur. Effective fire brought down, White Night Corps posted on social media platform X. At least 4 such infiltration bids have been thwarted in the Punch Rajouri region of J&K since last May this year, including the death of capture of such intruders. More than 90 Palestinians, including dozens from an intended family, were killed in Israeli airstrikes on 2 domes, rescuers and hospital officials said Saturday, a day after the UN chief warned again that nowhere is safe in Gaza and that Israel's offensive is creating massive obstacles to distribution of humanitarian aid. Also Saturday, the Israeli military said troops arrested hundreds of alleged militants in Gaza over the past week and transferred more than 200 of them to Israel for further interrogation, providing rare detail on the controversial policy of mass roundups of Palestinian men. The army said that more than 700 people were with alleged ties to the militant groups Hamas and Islamic Jihad have so far been sent to Israeli lockups. The health ministry of Gaza on Saturday evening said 201 people have been killed over the past 24 hours. On Friday, airstrikes flattened 2 homes, one in Gaza City and the other in the urban refugee camp of Nusayrat in the center of the territory. The US Supreme Court refused to decide immediately whether former President Donald Trump is immune from prosecution for seeking to overturn his 20 election loss, in a blow to prosecutors' efforts to start trial on March 4. The justices, without explanation or public dissent, indicated they will let a federal appeals court take the first look at Trump's appeal of a ruling rejecting his claim of immunity. The rebuff of special counsel Jack Smith leaves key questions about the ex-president's legal fate open as the primary for 24 elections get underway. Apple has opened negotiations in recent weeks with major news and publishing organizations seeking permission to their material in the company's development of generative artificial intelligence systems, according to 4 people familiar with the discussions. The technology giant has floated multi-layer deals worth at least $50 million to license the archives of news articles, said the people with knowledge of talks who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive negotiations. The news organization contacted by Apple include publisher of this. Some publishers contacted by Apple were lukewarm on the overture. After years of gain commercial deals with tech companies like Meta, the owner of Facebook. Publishers have grown worry of jumping into business with Silicon Valley. Several publishing executives were concerned that Apple's terms were too expensive, according to three people familiar with the negotiations. The initial pitch covered broad licensing of archives of published content, with publishers potentially on the hook for any legal liabilities that could stem from Apple's use their content. Around 4 p.m. on Saturday, the one-off women's test between India and Australia at the Wankhede Stadium produced a moment that makes this rivalry box office material. As soon as Australia captain Alice Haley patted back a ball from her Indian counterpart Harmanpreet Kaur, the latter fired it back at the stumps. Taking evasive action, a surprised Haley deflected the ball behind keeper Yashika Bhatia for a 4. It prompted Harmanpreet to appeal against the Haley for obstructing the field, but on-field umpire Anil Chaudhary and N. Janani didn't agree. Nearby by the Indian captain's throw at her body, Haley is a clear lapse of concentration tried to slope sweep Harmanpreet. The next ball and was tapped LBW plumb in front. Not to be missed was the cold stare at Harman in between celebrating with their teammates. Indian all-rounder and Mumbai Indians' new captain Hardik Pandya has recovered from his ankle injury and is likely to lead India in the 3-match T20 series at home against Afghanistan from January 11 and also play in the next season's IPL, reliable sources have told. He has completely recovered from his ankle injury. He has been training every day, sources close to the developments said on Saturday. There were reports earlier in the day that Pandya could be out of action for the next few months because of the injury, potentially ruling him out of the IPL too. The Mumbai Indians recently controversially appointed Pandya as new captain after trading him from Gujarat Titans for Rs 15 crore in the trading window. Hardik suffered the ankle injury during India's World Cup League match against Bangladesh in Pune in November and was then ruled out of the rest of the World Cup and the subsequent tour of South Africa. However, he should definitely be fit for the IPL and possibly the Afghanistan T20, sources said. Hardik is fit and fine. In fact, he has been working out daily. All the talk about him going on the miss of the IPL is just rumor. There are still almost 4 months left for IPL, so anything at this moment is just speculation. Pandya recently posted 2 videos on Instagram, is one of which he can seen working out in the gym and the second playing with his son Agastya. BCCI sources too said he should be fit and will play in the IPL. Talking to the reporters at the Women's Premier League auction here on December 9, BCCI Secretary Jai Shah had said Pandya could potentially return to international cricket during the 3-match T20 series against Afghanistan at home. We are monitoring it on a day-to-day basis. He is at National Cricket Academy only. He is working very hard and we will let you know in due course the moment he is fit. He could be fit before the Afghanistan series, Shah said. Meanwhile, Surya Kumar Yadav is also set to miss the upcoming 3-match T20 series against Afghanistan starting on January 11 due to an ankle injury sustained during the final T20 of the recently held series in South Africa. Surya Kumar Yadav will take 6 to 7 weeks to recover from his ankle injury. He is suffering from a grade 2 tear. He is currently on a break and will report to the NCA in Bangalore next week, a source said. The 31-year-old twisted his ankle while fielding against South Africa in Johannesburg in the third and last T20. Surya's injury may trigger a captaincy crisis for the T20s at home against Afghanistan. With Surya and possibly Hardik unavailable, the selectors might need to ask Rohit Sharma to lead the side unless they appoint Ravindra Jadeja as a standing captain. As it is, opener Rituraj Gaikwad, who captained India in the Asian Games, too injured with a broken finger and will be out for the series. Chennai Super Kings skipper MS Dhoni, who had a successful left knee surgery earlier this year, is likely to hit the nets in the next 10 days, said CEO KS Vishwanathan on Saturday. Speaking on the sidelines of the trophy and jersey unveiling event of the Junior Super King Inter-School T20 tournament, Vishwanathan gave an update on Dhoni's recovery. He is doing well now. He has started his rehab. He is working in the gym, and probably in another 10 days he will start working in the nets too. Vishwanathan said the CSK captain will conduct its pre-season camp from the first week of March. The IPL season is likely to start from March 22. So we are planning to conduct the first camp by the first week of March in Chennai. Next year's IPL will be coinciding with the Lok Sabha elections, and when Vishwanathan was asked if there were any plans for a split schedule, he replied, "I have no idea. They have not informed us about a split schedule. What they asked is that we should be prepared to play the IPL in India. This is what we get to hear from them during the auction." In the auction, CSK covered most of their bases and recruited 6 new players, with World Cup hero Derry Mitchell headlining the list. Vishwanathan felt they had successfully bidding. "I would say we pretty much got all targets. To be frank, we all planning to Mitchell. We also thought Mustafizur Rahman would be a good bet on our Chepak wicket with a side boundary. These were our thoughts, but we were not sure whether we would be able to get them. Luckily, it turned out to be a good auction for us this time." CSK super losing its rupees 8 crore for an uncapped player UP Samir Rizvi raised quite a few eyebrows. Vishwanathan said CSK are trying to build a young team for the future. Rizvi was a target for many franchises. We were probably a bit lucky in getting Rizvi. We are trying to get a replacement of Ambati Raidu. We didn't have enough players with that kind of experience to bid for any of them. So we thought it was better to go with a youngster than who has promise, he said. Okay. Bangladesh pace attacks shredded New Zealand's batting on a green Napier pitch to record a historic 9-wicket win and third and final ODI on Saturday. Having been well beaten in the first 2 matches to seed the series, Bangladesh produced a remarkable form reversal at Mecklin Park to dismiss the host for just 98 in 34 overs. The run change was a procession, with captain Najmam Hussain Shanto scoring an unbeaten half-century as they coasted to 99 in 15 overs. It was Bangladesh's first ODI win over the Black Caps on New Zealand soil, where they had lost the 18 previous fixtures since their first attempt in 90. Shanto's contribution began with the winning of the toss and inserting the Black Caps on lush bouncing surface, with also offered sideways movement, and this responded. 3 of the picked by 3 wickets of New Zealand were skittled for the lowest total of 45 ODIs between the teams.